everybody, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Heben.
And this is another round with Heben and Tracy. Psych, it's Halloween.
Trick or treat.
You got Halloweened. This is kind of, sort of, but not really another round with Heben and Tracy. I am here with my good friend and colleague, Mr. Ahmed Ali Akbar.
Hey.
Hello, how are
Tracy.
you?
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here too because we have such an exciting reason that we have you here, and that is because you are the host of the Pod Squad's newest little pod baby, See Something, Say Something.
Woo!
Yay! And we wanted to do a very special introduction to our wonderful, beautiful Another Round listeners about the show. So let's do like a teeny tiny 3-minute interview. You cool?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
All right. And we're going to do a throwback Another Round question to start this interview, which is, what do you do and why?
I am a writer here at BuzzFeed. I write lists, but I also sometimes write essays and social news stories about being Muslim in America. And before I was here, I was in grad school studying American Muslims. So that's been something that I have been interested in for my whole life because my family always sort of, I don't know, they were also kind of obsessed with American Muslims, I guess, and thinking about like how to build a community. They're real community activist types, especially my mother. Who was also had the double thing of being a Muslim woman. So she also had this extra thing of people not understanding why she was such an outspoken woman. And she's like a big inspiration for me. I feel like, I mean, she passed away a couple years back. And basically, like, I feel like I started writing after she passed away. So kind of to carry on that legacy and also to figure it out. You know, figure out what it all means. And it's getting more and more complicated every day.
And I mean, really, we're all just trying to figure it out. Whatever it is, everybody's trying to figure it out. Nobody knows.
Nah, I don't know. That's my whole thing. I don't know. But I'll just, tell some stories, I guess,
So we'll get to join you as you try to figure it out.
That's right.
I want to know a little bit more about you, our intrepid host. Where are you from?
I spent basically my entire formative years in Michigan, but my parents are Pakistani immigrants, so I feel like I'm also from there. They're from Punjab in Pakistan, which is a very cool sounding state, and it always sounds cool when you get to say I'm Punjabi.
It sounds so dope.
It does sound dope, right? Like Punjabi
like,
MC.
ooh, wow.
There's everybody knows about Punjabis.
So tell me and our listeners about the podcast.
Basically, it's a show where every week we rotate guests. I bring a bunch of different voices into the studio. We drink chai and we talk about being Muslim in America. And each week it's a different topic. Muslims feel this burden of representation where they want to make everything seem perfect. And also, I just wanted to find the voice that is not a responsive voice. It's the things that we care about outside of what other people think of us.
And everything that you just said is a real reason why, is one of the many reasons that we really wanted to make sure that we introduce this podcast, your podcast, directly to our listeners, because so many of our listeners know exactly what that feels like, right? The burden of like being the only one.
Totally.
And having to always be perfect outside of your home in the company of white folks because you don't want to give them a reason to treat you badly. We should be allowed to not be perfect and to just be like goofy and silly and kind of like bootleg sometimes.
So do you have any advice for me? Because I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing.
I feel like with shows like ours, with Another Round and See Something, Say Something, make yourself the norm, basically. Like you and your experience is normal. It's the norm. Don't explain shit for white folks. Don't explain shit for me.
Hate that.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun actually listening to, I've heard the first full episode. It's so good. It's so good.
Thank you, Tracy.
And I'm a nerd, so I literally made a list of things that I learned and things that and I had fun looking stuff up, and putting stuff together via context clues. It's fun and it's not hard.
It's good you can figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something also I learned from you, I think, is not to define things.
All right. Are you ready for the world to hear your baby?
No, not yet.
What?
Because I got to say something.
Okay, go ahead. Say You gotta say
I gotta say something! Oh, gosh. Nobody can see our faces, but we are smiling right now.
It was good. It was a good pun. Okay, say the thing.
Which is that if you like what you heard today, and also you want to support, brown people on the internet, brown people at BuzzFeed, brown voices, people of color producing stuff for themselves, please subscribe to the See Something, Say Something, and of course Another Round if you haven't already.
Do it.
And rate it and share it and tell us what you think. You can email us at saysomething@buzzfeed.com and hit me up on Twitter at radbrowndads@twitter.com. I'll be there for you.
Aw, you're so sweet. I would just like to emphasize how important word of mouth is when it comes to podcasts finding their audience, especially brown podcasts.
Totally.
So definitely do that. Subscribe, tell your folks, tell your friends, tweet about it, Tumblr it, do all of the social media things. Because
tell your uncles and aunties.
Tell your uncles and aunties, they're going to love it.
It's a very uncle and auntie positive show.
They're going to love it so much. So make sure you do that. So, actually, before we introduce your baby to the world, I thought we could do another round type thingy and do a very quick pew pew pew. Are you ready?
Yes,
Does that mean
I'm
yes?
definitely
Are you
ready.
sure? Okay. So, I give you a time machine, right?
Yeah.
And I tell you that with this time machine, you can contact one relative of yours to talk to, hear a story from. Do you go 100 years in the future or 100 years in the past?
Definitely the past.
Yeah?
Yeah, actually. The future freaks me out. We might not even...
Wait, why does the future freak you out?
Because, oh, God, it's too unpredictable. And then I would go back to my regular timeline and just be worrying about how I can stop whatever dystopian...
Oh, shit.
There's just too much stress with going to the future.
Yeah.
Then you got to change it, You're worried about changing it. I'm generally interested in history. So I would love to hear the history from somebody, a relative directly from them instead of like the stories that have been told. My family history was a lot different 100 years ago. So I would be interested in learning about that.
Okay. If something were to be named after you, what would you want it to be? Like a river or like a building or like one of those park benches that you see like in the park?
I don't think I would want a physical thing named after me. I think I would want like an action. I don't know what it is, like not a dance move because I'm not a super good dancer, but maybe it's a dance move if it's like funny enough, or maybe it's like something you do at karaoke. That's the Amadali Akbar. You know what I mean?
I like it. I think it should be a dance move personally. And I mean, I'm not here to like tell you how to live.
That's the easiest one. That's the easiest one for sure. Because physical things. You don't know. Actually, everything. Damn, I got dark for a second. I was like, everything goes away.
But it does, though. I mean, I think it's a great answer.
Yeah.
Erykah Badu has a song where she talks about this. It's called, let me see if I can think about it, AD 2000, I think. It was on Mama's Gun. I'm not going to sing it. But she talks about how she doesn't want any buildings named after her because everything's just going to crumble and die anyway. So,
yeah.
You're dark, but so is Erykah Badu, so it's okay.
Dance move is going to give people more joy than a bridge.
Right. Like, but a dance move, though.
The Akbar would,
And will.
The Ali Akbar.
What if in like 10 years there's a bunch of little kids on Twitter like doing your dance and then becomes a challenge like the
it's like
Akbar
retro.
Challenge.
Yeah, see?
I'm excited for your dance move. Okay, one more time, remind people where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on Twitter at radbrowndads, also on Tumblr at radbrowndads. And you can email me at saysomething@buzzfeed.com.
So make sure that you follow Amit on all the things, and also make sure that you tell your friends, you subscribe, you rate.
Yes, please.
Tweet it, Instagram it, Tumblr it, snappity chat it, snappy chap. Snappy chap it. Do all the things. And without further ado, here is
the first episode.
The first episode of See Something, Say Something.
Woo! Thank you so much for having me, Tracy.
Course.
I'm so happy.
Please come back.
Would love to. Hey there, I'm Amadal Yakber, and this is See Something, Say Something, the BuzzFeed podcast where we drink tea, tell stories, and talk about big life questions. Before we start the show off, I have to give shout-outs to the Caminas, who provided our theme song, and let's be honest, inspiration for the name of the show.
If you see something, you better say something. Nothing at all, nothing at all.
I'm your host, Amadal Yakber. I'm a writer at BuzzFeed, and I've written about a lot of stuff for the website, but even before I came here, I've been thinking about American Muslims. I'm obsessed with how to capture this beautiful, complicated, sometimes crazy community I've grown up in, but every time I write about Muslims, I feel this incredibly heavy burden of representation. I think about, will what I'm writing confirm stereotypes about Muslims or battle them? Can writing even break stereotypes? Is that our role? Have I included other types of Muslim identities besides my own? And so on this show, I want to remove that burden of representation. This is a show where we talk about our personal experiences and not for Muslims or on behalf of all Muslims like we are so often asked to do. Like me, for instance, I'm the son of two Pakistani immigrants. I grew up in Michigan, go blue. I think chais for social gatherings and coffee is a solitary thing. I don't pray too often, but every Friday I try to head up to the mosque near our office for Friday prayers. And afterwards, I grab a cup of tea. Speaking of tea, I always offer it to my guests. So this seems like a good time to introduce Nabiha Sayed and Johanna Bouya. Nabiha is a lawyer who has worked on free speech, women's rights, and media. She's currently assistant general counsel here at BuzzFeed. Nabiha, when you drink tea, how do you take your tea?
Black. Black. No milk, no sugar, no nothing. I am prepared to live in the most dire of circumstances, okay?
That's true.
I just want straight caffeine in my cup, none of this fancy stuff.
And Johanna Bouya is a senior editor and tech reporter at Recode who focuses on transportation and the ride-sharing economy. Johanna, how do you take your tea?
What is the point of tea without milk?
I
I don't
know.
understand.
Just drink milk plain. If you
What?
want milk, drink milk. If you want tea, drink tea.
Who drinks milk plain?
I do.
Tea is just scented water. Okay, let's be honest.
I'm
It
into
needs
it.
some body. The idea right now is to serve the guest tea every time, and it just kind of reminded me of I don't know, in my household, anytime we had guests, it was rounds and rounds of tea.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it
Never
was-
stops.
And you always had to say, how do you take your tea? How do you take your tea? And you got to the point where you remember
Yeah.
what everyone's tea order is.
Wow, you're a better housewife than I am.
But I feel like, recreating that here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. You should totally do that. Also, people used to judge you on how orange your tea was.
Yep.
You know?
You mean how
it
how
can't-
milky it is?
Yeah, basically.
I just remember aunties referring to people's skin color based
Oh
on
my
how
gosh.
the tea
I didn't
color.
want to say it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it.
Well, I went there. I went there.
I'm dark in my family. My mom is pale white, so they were really disappointed when I was born.
Oh no.
Yeah, my family did that too, and I don't know. It always felt kind of weird. It's
What do you mean? Of
Because
course it's
it
weird.
is
It's so
weird.
wrong.
Because
It's
it's
super
the
weird, okay.
weirdest.
Yeah.
But now it lets me have a lot of jokes that are
Yeah.
I like my tea. I like,
You're men.
yeah. Just felt that was implicit.
This week we're talking about times when you were asked to speak for Muslims and your answer was nah. I'll ask my panelists what they're thinking about, and a little later on, I'll tell a story about my name. That's all coming up. But first, we're going to play a few rounds of a game called Halal or Not. Ooh. Wow, you guys made yourself laugh. So Halal or Not is going to be a segment where I basically give you guys a couple of topics or things or objects, and you're going to have to, like an over or under, you're going to say whether it's halal or not. And of course, it's not binding. It's just your own personal opinion. We're going to start with Nabiha, and then we'll go to Johanna, and then we'll go back and forth.
Sounds good.
Nabiha, foodies.
Haram. Haram to be a foodie.
Why is it haram?
You're fetishizing the food. I say this as a harami foodie. But it's not good. It's not a good look.
Johanna, iPhone 7.
Oh, totally haram. As a tech reporter, I find it absolutely ridiculous that you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars like putting together this announcement for a phone that people don't even want. They don't want these new features. Why are you making me buy a $200 headphone? All of it is haram. Just no, don't do it.
Agreed. I just can't even deal with the lack of headphone jack.
I need it. For me particularly, like I can't be on a subway like wearing a hijab and have headphones in and like ignore people, and like I need them to know that I have headphones in so that people aren't approaching me. Like the wires are particularly helpful in avoiding people.
That's a really good point.
That's real. I hadn't thought of that.
Not halal. Nabiha, frosted mini wheats. Frosted mini wheats.
Frosted mini wheats.
Wait, why did you laugh when you asked her that? Is there a backstory?
Because she...
Oh, is there a backstory? So, frosted mini wheats was something that many people in the Southern California Muslim community loved and cherished until one uncle at Jummah stands up and says, brothers, sisters, I have an announcement. Frosted mini wheats. And literally everyone's like, stop. Do not tell us anything.
Don't say it.
Don't say it. Because once you say it, now we know and we can't eat them. And they're real cheap at Costco. Also, P.S. delicious.
Yeah.
And he has no humanity. And he tells everyone that there is in fact gelatin in the delicious.
The frosting?
Yes. The frosted part is
That's the whole
basically
point.
just pig juice, according to him. And now, in my mind, forever haram and also forever traumatized. They were delicious.
I eat frosted mini wheats as a snack because I'm a 12-year-old and I put cereal in a cup and I sit at my desk. And I eat frosted mini wheats and I only eat the frosted side.
Yeah, so now I'm that uncle to you.
Oh
I just
my
ruined your
God.
life.
Uncle Nabiha is so rude.
The chain continues.
Ignorance is bliss when it comes to haram
No,
things.
totally. Because if you don't know, then you don't know and you're totally cool.
And there was always that one auntie who would like come into the class at masjid school and be like, let me tell you all the things that you cannot have at the Eid party. You cannot have your Rice Krispie treats. You cannot have any delicious cereal. Oh, gummy bears? Is that a thing you like? Nope, haram. You can't have anything. And it's terrible. And
No,
I don't want to
totally.
be that person.
I had a friend once, I made a salad and I was about to serve it and she goes, did you put Dijon mustard in that?
No,
And I
what?
was like,
Shut up. Amit, stop talking.
sorry.
Uncle, sit down. Stop talking.
She waited till I served it, guys.
Oh my God.
Wait,
what a rude
what's
person.
wrong with Dijon mustard?
I guess there's alcohol in it, but you're not going to get drunk off of it.
If someone gets drunk off of Dijon mustard, as a community, we should intervene for other reasons.
Yeah.
Not the alcohol reasons.
Also, if you could get drunk off Dijon mustard, you'd see like 18-year-olds or 16-year-olds like buying Dijon mustard by the bulk.
yeah, it's like the new syrup.
Yeah.
Johanna, mustaches.
Without beards?
Yes,
Oh,
mustaches.
not halal. Sorry, I'm looking around. He has a beard.
You need the beard
Yeah.
to make it halal.
Solely
the beard
mustaches
matters.
are so ridiculous. Like I feel like it takes more effort to just grow out a mustache than to just let the whole thing grow and then groom it a little bit.
Okay, I respect the mustache a little bit. I understand the hesitation. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. When I lived in India, I definitely everyone else had a mustache and thought it was weird that I had a beard. So to blend in, I gave myself a mustache and it was great. It was
But
really, really
I think
good.
mustache beard combo is good. But
Yeah.
I think mustache alone is weird.
Beard alone with no mustache looks weirdly naked.
Yeah.
It's a package deal. You need both.
Beards alone with no mustache, definitely, absolutely, completely haram. No one should ever
Can't
do
do
that.
it.
Let me
not
throw
allowed.
a curveball at you. What about orange beard, no mustache?
That's a classic. That's a classic.
The orange beard.
Oh,
Just,
God.
why?
What's the orange beard, guys?
It's henna.
It's henna, right?
Yeah.
I always thought that was really their hair color.
I
was-
just
I definitely
When I was
did
a
for
kid,
years.
there's just like a weird subset of South Asians that are gingers.
Yeah, it's fine. They came from Ireland. It's fine. Muslims are everywhere. It's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that, uncle.
No, it was always so bizarre to me. Just go gray, stay gray.
But there's definitely uncles who look in the mirror and they're like, yes,
Looks
this is
good.
better. Yes.
Yeah.
I almost considered trying it also. I'm weird. I like
Oh
to
my
try the weird
God.
uncle things.
This is
That's
a
why
great
my
time because we learned so much about you that you otherwise would never tell us.
That's why my handle is Rad Brown Dads. I appreciate
You're
the
literally
dad
dad.
aesthetic.
If you ever let me back here, I will just slander you by saying he's sitting here with an orange beard
Yeah.
right now.
Nobody
no
would
mustache.
know.
No mustache.
Nobody
Just the
would know.
beard. I don't know what to do about this. I dislike. Haram.
Nabiha, what are you thinking about this week?
I just read this NPR article about a Yale study that came out looking at preschool teachers. So when these teachers expect someone to act out in class, their eyes linger on Black boys. And they had this eye tracking software, and they could just see that these teachers gravitated towards looking at these little boys. And to me, it's atrocious for all of the reasons, that we know. It is a terrible reminder of implicit bias, also a thing that we all know exists. But sort of the larger link to sort of how I've been feeling about the election and just the burning trash fire that's 2016 is that kind of implicit bias, right? That it is so pervasive. It's in preschool teachers, not just the cops. We know the cops have a problem, but it's the teachers, it's the electorate, it's the people that want this fascist tangerine to now be our president. It's everywhere. And what that means is that our work is so broad and large in ways that I think I had never really thought about. And so this week has felt sort of heavy in that way, that there's a lot to be done. I don't know how to do it. I definitely want to watch more Buffy the Vampire Slayer on Netflix, but it feels a little irresponsible. So there's a lot of serious stuff on my mind this week.
Johanna, what are you thinking about this week?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that because you're hitting on the fact that, our jobs in the media is so important now, and our roles that we're playing and the platform that we have should be used or can be used in a particular way when we have sort of a responsibility to use it in a way that helps, I don't know, get rid of this dude. I don't know if it's at all possible. But so I was listening to another podcast yesterday called the Long Form Podcast, and they were interviewing AJ Delario, who is the ex-editor of Gawker, who has been sued by Hulk Hogan, who was backed by Peter Thiel. And he was talking about, not just sort of the legalese of the case, but more so the emotional toll that it took on him, as well as the financial toll that it took on him. Because, he woke up one morning and there was a hold on his bank account, and he went to check what was going on, and he had been charged $230 million because he owed that from this case. And so I thought about that because I knew I was coming on this podcast with Nabiha. And Nabiha, and a little bit of backstory, we worked together at BuzzFeed, and I was a tech reporter, and I would write about Uber and Lyft and stuff like that. And Nabiha's job was basically to make sure that I did not get sued. And so after listening to that podcast, I was like, I'm so thankful for you, always have been, but also my bank account and probably my mom is super thankful that you exist. But there is a larger issue here where, people with a lot of money who are already empowered because they have a lot of money now feel more empowered in the fact that they can silence a media organization. And we can argue about the actual ethics of the article and things like that. But at the same time, the bottom line is this really rich dude in the shadow of the night funded a lawsuit that had nothing to do with his story to silence a media organization. And this is happening in the context of the larger issue of Donald Trump, who doesn't like media to begin with. And so it's a little bit terrifying of a time to be not only Muslims, journalists, women, just, people. And I don't know, nothing happy apparently is what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, it's on the media side, I think both about the penalties for speaking, like the Gawker example, and then also all of the people who can speak with no allegiance or responsibility to the truth.
Yeah.
Right. So people who are talking about Hillary having a body double or, the ever-present birthers or whatever, truth is not a mooring to reality anymore.
Right.
And that working in media it just feels so complicated.
Yeah.
What is your responsibility to the truth? How do you even begin to fight when the common ground isn't facts?
Right.
Well, I'm actually this whole week, I have been thinking about the podcast, but because that's, this is going to be our first episode, and I wanted to make sure the tone was right. And you guys did a great job talking about a lot of the things that I'm thinking about, which is just, as a Muslim writer or a visible Muslim, somebody who's out there and, has a Muslim name and people are reading your writing or you're speaking at places. What's your responsibility to speaking for Muslims? One of my first experiences doing that was my mom had me do interfaith stuff.
Oh, nice.
And it was not nice.
No.
I mean, it was she basically had me write down a speech on misconceptions about Islam. I was in middle school. she said you have to like figure out some concepts that will help you explain things to people who don't know anything about Islam. And this was in Saginaw, Michigan, right after 9/11. My community was majority Pakistani, but there was other groups there too. There was some East African immigrants. There were some Arab immigrants. There was also this Nation of Islam community that had been there since the 70s. And my mom made all the children who were teenagers at that time do this interfaith thing. She was trying to prepare us to go speak at all these different schools and churches. I was 13 years old and insecure about everything, but I was totally confident I wrote a good speech. But inevitably, the questions would always be this thing that didn't feel like it was even based in facts. A lot of times I would get asked, where's Osama bin Laden? I would be like, here are all the misconceptions. They'd be like, yes, but where are the terrorists? And I was like, I live in Michigan. You know, I've been to school with you and all that.
They're in my closet. It's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely hiding him. I feel like a lot of my life has been sort of defined by not having to do that anymore, but still feeling like that responsibility of speaking for and about Muslims. And it seems like such a complicated territory. And, you know, I think I would love to hear stories from you guys about moments where you guys were asked to, you know, speak for Muslims and it gave you pause maybe and like learning to say no in that circumstances and other times where you had to say yes. Nabiha, you want to start?
Sure. I have to say that when I was much younger, when these questions first started coming in around the same time that I was not as eloquent as you are, I felt like it was so uncomplicated. If I just show them that I am normal and that I know other normal people, it will all be okay and you'll stop asking me stupid questions like, where's Osama bin Laden? And then I found the more I would answer the questions, the more it felt like if you give a mouse a cookie, right? Like the questions devolve into, but you seem normal.
Yeah.
How do I know that other ones aren't? And that process of realizing that not all of the questions were good faith, but some were, and you're never going to know ahead of time. Sometimes you'll know. Sometimes you'll know ahead of time if someone's asking in good faith or not, but it's hard to discern from time zero, right? Is this a person who's just never met a Muslim before and they want to know what you're like and like whether you secretly have scales and there's like a Muslim hive mind that like we're all connected and we know what they're thinking. But I do think that there were times where there were probably just like a well-meaning fellow Girl Scout who wants to know like, what's up with Muslims?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? More recently, so I'm a free speech lawyer, and it's what I do. It's what I've committed my life to. I find it fascinating. Every time there is a perceived clash of free speech and Muslimness, so whether it's a cartoon or anything related to speech, right? I get a lot of questions that start off with, so what do Muslims think about this? As if we're like, well, we got together in our big club and we decided we should probably kill you for cartoons, right? Like there's that weird presumption in the question. And then often I feel that people are like, but how do you reconcile this conflict, right? Because you are a Muslim, so you must hate all of these things. And yet you represent the First Amendment. How is this possible? And in the beginning of those, like with the first set of Danish cartoons, which I think 2006, 2007, I can't recall, my response was just to opt out, right? Like, this is too complicated. I'm not repping the Muslims. Like,
I'm assuming this is in casual conversation.
Yeah, in casual conversation. I just don't want to deal with it, so I'm not going to go there. And as I've sort of professionally been in more spaces where not only am I the only Muslim, I'm one of the few women, and I'm definitely the only woman of color, it feels like I have to say something. Right? So I have to say, yes, as a matter of free speech, I can conceptually defend these problematic cartoons like Charlie Hebdo, but note your own hypocrisy. A writer, an illustrator at Charlie Hebdo was fired for anti-Semitic cartoons, right? So actually there are boundaries on speech. You've just decided that Muslims don't avail themselves of those protections, but other groups do. And then it turns into like, well, you can't be objective because you're a Muslim, so you don't know. And so my objectivity is constantly on trial. So even in those moments where I decide, okay, there's enough of a perceived collision of things that I identify as and believe in that I should like maybe talk about it, then it immediately blows up in your face.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always felt that way too. And I've when I went into journalism, I didn't really know what kind of journalism I'd be going into, but I very explicitly did not want to go into politics because it's so difficult to be so outwardly anything, like any one identity, and then not be seen as having some sort of implicit bias. I started wearing hijab when I was in 4th grade, and I originally grew up in Ozone Park, Queens, and so it was like a fairly diverse neighborhood. There were Bengalis, there were people who were from Puerto Rico, Guyana, the Philippines, and so there wasn't sort of a need there to like constantly have to explain myself. But then my family did the Asian migration to Long Island, and I went to a school that was, at that time, my neighborhood now there is like basically Little India. But when we first went there, it was largely middle class, like white people. And I was in 4th grade and I decided to start wearing hijab because I was going to a new school and I planned on wearing it anyway. And I felt like I had to explain who I was constantly. And so I, as a 4th grader, still had no real perception or no real understanding of, who I was as a Muslim yet, or my interpretation of Islam and hijab and things like that. So a lot of it was like, this is what my dad told me, so I'm going to tell you that. And then eventually, as the years go by, like I'm still in a largely, white environment, and I feel like I always felt like I had to explain myself. And it's interesting now, even though I work in an industry where it's largely, white men who I'm covering in tech and white men who are writing about tech, I think that I have kind of the luxury of working in media among people who understand more nuances than people outside of media might. And it's a bubble that I operate in, and I totally see the privilege in that. So I don't feel like I ever have to like speak for Muslims as much now as I used to when I was younger. But my dad actually is part of this like Islamic Leadership Council of New York, and I joke that my side hustle is to help him. And I mean, he'll ask me for advice,
like or like ghostwriter.
No, don't say that because then I feel like I get fired. But no, he'll send me things. He'll be like, does this sound okay, or blah blah blah, and then he'll like talk over things that they're doing with me, and every time there's some sort of terrorist attack that, a Muslim happens to be behind, or a so-called Muslim, who knows, however you want to define that, and the Muslim Leadership Council of New York is literally like a conglomeration of all of the different masajids in New York. And so they all get together and they're like, so what statement are we putting out? And at the Muslim Day Parade, there was a speech where someone was saying that in the entire history of Islam in America, Muslims haven't condemned terrorism, which is like one, absolutely false. Like we've constantly condemned terrorism, but two, and this is what I tell my father all the time, we don't need to necessarily say something every time there's a terrorist attack. Like, why are we taking ownership of something that's not ours? It's not a product of us, our community. This is not something that we did, not something that we purveyed, and we don't constantly have to be like, okay, we're really sorry about that, and it's interesting because the other end of it is that people will say, well, how come you never condemn terrorism? And it's like such a weird balance to strike. But we're at the point now, I think, in 2016, where I don't think we should have to. I think we're at the point where we can say, we're here all the 90,000 times that we've condemned terrorism. We're not over it. We've made it very clear that we are not for terrorism. Let's move on now. Terrorism is not ours. We don't have to speak every time there's a terrorist attack.
Do you feel like there's a generational difference as well? Because part of like what I was describing with my story was, I didn't feel that pressure to explain things. I like didn't want to talk about it at all. But my mother was like, you have to go out there and say things because otherwise no one will.
Not for everyone, but at least for my parents, like they came here, right? They came of age in another place, and then they came here, and there's this feeling of wanting to justify, like, I belong here, I'm here, you took me, right? For me, I feel like I was born here. Yeah. This is mine. I don't need to say anything to you. And to your point, I feel like there was a sort of like, there's a naive approach to this in the beginning where they're like, all right, what do we do? What do we do? Everyone's getting really mad at us, so we haven't condemned it. We're going to condemn it. As if condemning it would actually quiet these people. Yeah. Which now we know it doesn't, right? It's
in fact became, in response to that, like there was almost like plugging your fingers in your ear and saying la 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 la, and then expanding the rhetoric. It's become like so much more.
Oh, it's so much worse now, and like it's so layered now, right? Yeah. It's not as easy as a like, no, we apologize, sorry, it's not us, and they're like, oh yeah, cool. we're good now. That's definitely not what's happening. I think maybe that's what everyone thought was going to happen 10 years ago. 15 years ago.
Yeah. But there's an aspect of it that's like when we apologize for it, we're like implicitly taking ownership of it. And that's the part that I hate so much. It's like, why am I under any obligation to apologize for something that's not mine? I don't even know this person. This happened in like Florida, it happened in California, it happened across the world. This is not mine to condemn. It's something that even in talking to my dad about it, they were like, but what would we do otherwise? And I'm like, I don't really know what the answer to that is, you know?
Also, where does it stop? Like, I'm a curvy brunette from Southern California. I should apologize for the Kardashians way more than I apologize for terrorism, right? Like, I'm closer to one of those than the other.
Yeah.
And it's definitely Calabasas.
So that's like one aspect of this, which is, of course, responding to the news. But there's also like the cultural production aspect of it is like, how do you create things that are reflective of the diversity of Muslims?
Yeah.
You know, like we're all three of us here, we're children of immigrants, basically. Children of South Asian and in Johanna's case, also Filipina. But we're only one part of the Muslim community, and our voices are maybe overrepresented. Muslims can be Arab or Black or European or Asian, white, whatever. And because the identity is so intensely in the spotlight, there's this desire to simplify the identity into one thing. But there is a need to create culture, to make music, to be in the news, to break stereotypes, as much as I hate that phrase. And it feels a lot of the time we celebrate Muslims that are doing things like, I'm here and I'm doing a thing, and because I'm Muslim, it's powerful in itself. But I think it's more complicated than that, and there's a lot of responsibility to a lot of different types of people. So what I'm curious about is there anyone who's doing the cultural production thing right? Obviously, no one is perfect, but who comes close?
Oh, that's so hard. I mean,
It is hard.
This is where I want to claim Aziz, but I know he's not part of our crew.
Aziz Ansari?
Yes.
Aziz is also my dad's name, so
Oh, sorry.
if you want him, you can just claim him.
No, but it is. I mean, just thinking about.
Can't we claim Aziz though?
I would like, you know what? As a Muslim named person,
Yeah.
he's representing something.
I mean, if people with turbans now represent Muslims, like Aziz Ansari can represent a Muslim.
That's fair. All right. So thank you for giving me the room.
He's actually written a lot about, like, he very clearly will say, I identify as atheist, but Trump's policies affects people like my parents who are Muslim.
Right.
You know, and he sort of recognizes his own truth.
It's that recognizing his own truth and speaking about his own life with nuance that I love and look at, and I'm like, you're doing it right. You're representing you. You're not trying to be everything to all people. When people ask you, you'll say like, yeah, that's not me. I'm not for all.
Right.
And I like that he's doing it sort of outside of the specter of some of the stuff we've been talking about surveillance and national security, because so much of a very particular American Muslim lived experience has been within that context, but it's not everybody's.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in law school, I did this like, know your rights training for people if the cops show up at your door, right? And there were a lot of different people who showed up.
And it's designed for Muslims mostly, or is it
designed for Muslims
in terms of like counterterrorism type
exactly like
informants.
What do you do when the FBI is like, hello,
right? Yeah.
Let's chat, right? How should you comport yourself?
Oh my God, cry.
Shut the door. Shut the door. Oh God, what's happening?
Close the door. Call your lawyer. And it was great because there were these African Americans who were in the neighborhood who were Muslim who came because I heard about it at Jummah. And one woman comes up to me afterwards and she's like, we've been living with this stuff since the 70s.
Right.
And she's like, great job. It was great advice. But like, this is our lived experience.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the first moment where I was like, like head explosion. The idea of like policing and being under the scrutiny of law enforcement is not a thing that brown Muslims are experiencing in a vacuum that no other Muslims have felt before.
Right.
It's so important to me to try to remember those other aspects of lived experience of the American Muslim experience and just sort of break out of this like South Asian, like defined by terrorism, defined by surveillance, like, oh no, lens, even though that's all important. And if that's someone's truth, I want them to speak it. But the reason I'm like down with my friend Aziz Ansari is he's just speaking to his own life. Like he likes pasta, okay? He's going to go off to Italy and make it at the end of the season. You do you.
And he likes bacon. He loves talking. He talks a lot about his love for pork.
I mean, I can't get down with the love for pork, but the love for bacon format in things I'm really into. It is crispy and fatty. How are you going to hate on that? Like,
No, totally.
Nothing is wrong with that. Everyone, if you have a human tongue, you like crispy, fatty things.
It's true.
if you can say not all men, like, can you not conceive of the fact that all Muslims aren't the same? Like, how is that so difficult for you? And so all the stories that even, first person narratives, even if it's not meant to be told that way, is sort of perceived as an exception to the rule as opposed to one of many,
Totally.
And it's kind of difficult, particularly because people like pat you on the back way too much. They're like, oh, thank you for speaking for our people. I'm like, bro, I just wrote about like how one time someone talked to me about my hijab. I'm not a hero. Like the fact that we're so thirsty for that kind of representation, I think is a huge issue. You have to like capture the diversity of like the Muslim community. And it's like, but how can you? You will never be able to.
Yeah.
No offense.
No, I agree. I came to that conclusion. And
Yeah.
a lot of what I end up doing is, sort of crowdsourcing different opinions as opposed to like me being the
voice.
the voice itself. It's this, sort of chorus of voices.
Right. To that point, I think maybe the only way you do it is you make room for others, right? Like you have to just shine theory that forever. Like bring other people in, bring other people up, make sure all the voices are there, and just don't hog the mic.
Yeah.
This is great advice for the podcast. If we have to, like, what are some better ways? We kind of are talking about it now, but what are some better ways we can speak in these situations? Like, if there's a young Muslim listening to this podcast, and they're in that situation, what's your advice for them?
I think it would be to make very clear that you're speaking about your own lived experience, which sounds like things that you guys have already done. So saying, I'm from Southern California, I'm Pakistani Muslim, and like it looks like this to me. Especially being conscious of how you represent yourself to the outside. I think there is speaking of thirst, there's a real thirst for like, what do the Muslims think?
Yeah.
What's happening? Because they think
Good
we have this hive
advertising
mind.
dollars also.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. So they're so curious that that question is out there. And if you don't make it perfectly clear that you're not speaking on behalf of all of them, it'll get taken that way. And you may not want it to be that way. Right. So just specify, like, this is where I come from. This is what I've seen.
I totally agree. One, my advice would be, I don't really know what to do. I can give you 90,000 things not to do. But one, best revenge is your paper. So work hard, play hard.
So true. So true.
Like, first of all, your first priority is not to speak for all Muslims. It's like, take care of yourself, do your thing, be successful.
Fair enough.
But two, like I was saying, I grew up and was sort of raised in a lot of white environments. And I didn't really have a lot of Muslim people my age or even around my age to talk to and turn to until I became like a professional journalist. And like at BuzzFeed, we ended up having this like really wonderful Muslim community like to turn to. It was called Halal Feed.
Let's go, Halal Feed.
Having that outlet was really important for me because even now, sometimes I'll be like about to tweet a rant and I will like G-chat Ahmed and I'm like, does this sound okay? Am I right or am I wrong? And like talk through these ideas about you don't have to take on the role of representing all of Islam. You don't have to take on the role of representing all of Muslim Americans. Or even for me, like I can say, oh, I'm a hijabi in mainstream media, but I by no means represent all hijabis and we are all so different, even in that bucket. And so feel free to have conversations with people who also might be going through something similar, who are in the same environment as you and may be able to help you hash out your ideas before you go out and be like, here's all the things that Muslims want, need, and are like,
Yeah, Johanna and I used to do a lot of passing back and forth ideas. Just like we would read something and we'd say, does this seem right to you? Is my gut true? Because like there's different things that
like you have to recognize your biases. Yeah.
A lot of times we wouldn't agree.
No, yeah.
But that's a good thing.
No,
right?
totally.
It's a good thing that you don't necessarily agree on it. It's a reminder that not everyone agrees on everything.
Yeah. To a certain extent, I am some people's only exposure to Muslim voices. I don't take that lightly. And so now I'm just like, don't tweet every angry thing that you have to say. I'm angry a lot. So
just the burden of being publicly Muslim is
just the name.
It's just the name, right? Just
Yeah,
having the name is
that's
so hard.
That's what, like you can just be brown and like you're immediately affiliated with being Muslim.
Yep.
It's like insane.
Yeah.
And that not that, I mean that is insane also, but like even brown people are sort of now implicated with like the Muslim ID in all of its negative connotations.
I definitely have to say that you guys are speaking about Twitter so much. I rarely say anything on Twitter, and when I think about doing so, I think about all of the, okay, well, you're this type of person in the public space. This is what you do. And like thinking about being like a Muslim and being a like, good Muslim in public space is often so chilling that I'm like, that tweet's not that good.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, I'll try the Twitters again tomorrow. There's just so many angry things I want to say, and that the retaliation for them isn't just, oh my God, I just was angry to everybody.
Yeah.
But also, like, for real, there are people who end up on these crazy white supremacist lists.
No, totally.
There's like
That's
the
a nightmare,
the threat is real, and those angry eggs come for you on Twitter, and it's real crazy. And there's just a lot to muddle through when you're talking about speaking in public, being identifiably Muslim to other people. There's a lot to think there. You do need a support network, I think. And so just like reaching out to other voices isn't just good for a chorus of voices makes everything better, but like actually having that support group like helps people speak too.
Yeah. Like if you are a young Muslim reporter and you want help, hit me up at JM Booyah.
Yeah, I mean, any of us, I think.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm at Rad Brown Dads on Twitter.
You're literally a dad.
I'm at Nabila
Literally
Sayed.
not a dad, but
I found that very confusing for very long.
a lot of people, a lot of people are like, so how old are your kids? I'm like, I don't have any kids. I just think brown dads need more
Next
more
time
love.
you should just be like 4 and 3.
It's fine.
Just start picking up photos on my phone and just start showing
And so
them
every
to them.
time you have food stains on your clothes, you could be like, yeah, my 3-year-old did that.
It's good. It's a good excuse.
Do you guys want to hear my khutbah?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Okay, so one segment we have been thinking about is that I will do a khutbah.
Wait, what?
You know what a khutbah is, obviously,
yeah,
which
of
is
course.
like something that like an uncle does at the end of during every
explain it
Friday
to
prayer.
us?
I know you know what a khutbah is.
I was
but
like,
I'm
you've
just
seen me at Namas before. Like, I just saw you at
that's
Eid.
true. We did
Like,
run
I
into
just
each
saw
other
you at
at Eid.
Eid.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
How dare
so
you?
fun.
Yeah.
That's like really fun.
It is really
I've
fun.
never ran into someone that I like.
Oh, it's
and
so
I'm
much
friends
fun.
with. Yeah.
Anyhow, so basically, they're not going to be like religious khutbahs, obviously. They're just going to be stories.
Okay.
So I have a story about, I'm just going to tell sort of like a narrative about my name and the different ways I've learned to pronounce it that I think kind of tie into some of the themes of around the show.
Oh, good, because I've been pronouncing your name different than you have. So
Well, that's
now
okay.
I'll know.
That's kind of anyhow. So growing up, I didn't know that there was more than one way to say my name. My mother and father are Pakistani, and like many Muslim children, I have a name with Arabic roots. And I actually had 3, Ahmed Ali Akbar. And my parents would say it the Pakistani way, which is Ahmed Ali Akbar. And so, my first experience of somebody saying my name differently was I went to preschool, and the teacher, who I'm sure thought she was being like very inclusive, was basically like, I want to make sure that we say your name right. And I'd be like, Ahmed. And she'd be like, Amid. And I'd be like, that's not right. And she was like, okay. Why don't we get all in a circle and every child in the room will say your name. Okay? And you're going to pick which one is the closest to your name. So I was like, okay. So I stood in the center and I was like, my name is Ahmed. And then it went around and it was like, Amid, Ahmed, Amd. It was just like horrible. It was just like a whole.
I'm like in shock.
Yeah, it was like I just sat there while 26 children said my name in a different way for the first time.
That must have been so creepy.
It was
like,
very
everything about it
creepy.
is like, Amid,
Especially because
Ahmed, just looking at you. Because they were definitely looking at you.
And some of the kids were also basically definitely using it to joke around. Like they weren't like a mood. You know what I mean? Anyhow, so then basically
Old sounding kid. Come on.
so I was like, I guess that kid. And then apparently my mom said, and the teacher told her this, I don't remember this. She said that I said, you people are from another world. And I just looked down and was sad. So anyhow, that was like the first time I ever experienced somebody else saying my name differently. And I was like convinced that everyone was saying my name wrong. And I would just say Ahmed and like let them sort of mangle my name. And I just accepted that was the case. But then as I got older, I met some Arab students, and in high school and middle school, I would meet some Arab kids who would tell me that I was saying my name the wrong way. They'd be like, actually, your name is Ahmed. And I'd be like,
Oh God, that's what I was saying.
well, no. But let's go there, right? Like it was a whole process.
Yeah.
They would tell me that I was, and some people would just be like, they wouldn't say I said my name wrong. They'd just say Ahmed. I was like, okay, for other people, it's Ahmed. It's not just, like that's an acceptable way of saying it for them. And there's levels obviously about different ways people would say my name. But I basically stuck with Ahmed until high school. I wouldn't say Ahmed. But then like one time I was like doing some cold calls. I had like a job where I was calling people, and I'd be like, "Hi, this is Ahmed from," and they'd be like, "Who?" Because it was mostly like older. It was mostly older white folks, and I'd be like, "Ahmed." They'd be like, "Who?" And I'd be like, Ahmed? And they'd be like, "Oh, okay, you should have just said that the first time." So I said it like 500 times. I said, "Hi, my name is Ahmed," 500 times. When I came out of that, I started calling myself Ahmed.
I've now forgotten what your name actually is. I can't. Like, no matter how I say it. I'm like, I can't. Hey, Rad Brown Dads.
Rad Brown Dads. And so basically, in high school, I like said Ahmed so often that like even my Muslim friends would also call me Ahmed. Like I had these Indian and Kurdish friends who were both Muslim, and we would all say our names like sort of Americanized. It was like Ahmed, Aryan, and Munim, even though it was like Munim and Ahmed, So then like when I went to college, I sort of, I was like, I'm restarting this. Ahmed is bad. Maybe people understand Ahmed. So I actually started calling myself Ahmed.
Oh, no.
So I know. Because the reason why is because a lot of people would see my name and they would say Ahmed when they first see it. Before I said anything, they'd be like Ahmed. And the KH, no good. No good. So I was like, I'm going to go with Ahmed. So I did that for about a year. But like every Pakistani person was so disappointed in me. They're like, you're ashamed of yourself. Like, why are you calling yourself Ahmed when you know your name is actually Ahmed, And it was just like, I don't know, just my name was traumatizing. But then like as I got older and I would meet people from different places, from Turkey, from from Ethiopia, from West Africa, from or even like I grew up with a lot of black converts from the nation who also said my name differently. And I came to realize that it's like kind of I would started to switch depending on who I would say it to.
You code switched your own name.
Yeah, I did kind of start code switching my own name. So which is why a lot of people are confused. But to me, it's like as long as like it's not the Amud situation, at least the vowels are right. I'm like, that's okay. It's kind of serves as a good metaphor for how Muslims in America operate. We're all in multiple different spheres. You're unless you have isolated yourself in some way and you've like, maybe if you're somebody who has decided mostly to stick to your American identity or to your South Asian identity, a lot of us, if you don't want to abandon any of those things, you exist in multiple spaces. So yeah, I basically have learned to be okay with switching. I don't want to say code switching because I feel like there's so much more to code switching, you know what I mean? But I do switch, and I have come to like accept that it's like it's okay for people to say my name differently depending on context because we all live that process all the time. And it's come to the point where like I see myself as Ahmed, as Ahmed, sometimes even as Ahmed. Like when I go back home, my Muslim friends call me Ahmed.
But no Ahmed, right?
Yeah. And, you just have to adapt to different groups. And so as a result, I'm sure my guests are also going to be confused just how to say my name. But I just want to say it's okay. I'm happy with however my guests say my name, as long as you respect my right to change it up when I say it and, that it's still me. There's not a right way to be Ahmed, like there's no right way to be Muslim in America. Okay, so I want to thank Nabiha and Johanna for being on the first episode of See Something, Say Something. I can't believe we did it, guys.
I know, I'm so proud of us.
This is the best.
I spent that entire time trying to pronounce your name right.
The whole time. There's no right. I was like, how do I say it?
Now I can't say your name.
Ahmed.
Guys, Ahmed is okay.
No, but what is the right way?
There's no right way.
No,
though.
What is the way that you pronounce it?
My parents say Ahmed.
Okay, cool.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
You were a really great host.
You're the best. And you brought us tea.
Nabiha, where can people find you and your work?
They can find me at Nabiha Sayed. I will respond to you even if I'm scared to actually tweet out to the public.
And Johanna, how about you?
I am a reporter for Recode, so find all my articles at recode.net. Yes, we are a .net. And my Twitter is at JMBooyah, the way that you would spell the sound Booyah.
With an H.
Yes,
right?
With an H at the end.
Yeah. All right, thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Woo!
Yay!
This episode of See Something, Say Something was produced by Eleanor Kagan and Megan Dietrich. The BuzzFeed Audio Pod Squad also includes Julia Furlan and Meg Kramer. Additional production support by Tabir Akhtar, thanks to Paul Ruest at Argo Studios. Our music is by the Gominas, Kominas. You can listen to their latest record, Stereotype, at gominas.bandcamp.com. Find me on Twitter at RadBrownDads, and I also have a Tumblr called RadBrownDads. You can find my writing on BuzzFeed.com/AhmadAliAkbar. If you want to read about my experience of going to the mosque and drinking chai every week, I have an essay also called I Don't Know Why I Pray, But I Keep Trying, which you can also find on BuzzFeed. Email us at saysomething@buzzfeed.com. And if you like the show, please rate it on iTunes. Thanks for listening.